Marcus Daniels never imagined that 5 simple words would alter the course of his entire existence. The towering Apache warrior stood before him like a force of nature, nearly 7 feet of controlled power and lethal grace. He was a modest ranch hand, barely reaching her shoulder, whose quiet life had just been shattered by 3 violent men. She had appeared from nowhere to save him, moving with the fluid precision of a predator born for battle. Now, in the hushed stillness of the desert canyon, with his heart thundering against his ribs, Marcus found himself asking the question that would bind their fates together forever. Her smile and response held secrets that would reshape the frontier. Chapter 1: Desert Salvation. Marcus Daniels pressed his back against the rough canyon wall, his ribs screaming from where his spooked horse had thrown him into the rocky ravine. 3 men with drawn revolvers advanced through the desert shadows, their faces bearing the cruel satisfaction of predators who had cornered helpless prey. The midday sun beat down mercilessly on the red stone walls, but sweat that dampened Marcus's shirt came from fear rather than heat. The leader spat tobacco juice near Marcus's worn boots, his yellowed teeth visible in a menacing grin. The man's companions flanked him with practiced precision, blocking any possible escape route through the narrow canyon. Marcus calculated his chances with the cold clarity of a man facing death. At 26 years old, standing barely 5 feet 7 inches tall, he possessed neither the size nor the weaponry to survive this encounter. Working as a ranch hand on the furthest edges of territorial land had taught Marcus that violence often struck without warning in these remote places. Men disappeared regularly in the vast emptiness between settlements, their bones eventually scattered by desert winds and scavenging animals. Today appeared destined to add his name to that grim tally. The attack came with sudden, devastating precision that defied comprehension. One moment, the 3 bandits were dividing Marcus's meager possessions while deciding his fate. The next, their leader lay writhing in the dust, clutching his shattered wrist while his revolver skittered across the stone floor in broken pieces. She moved through combat like liquid lightning made flesh. This Apache woman, who seemed to materialize from the canyon walls themselves, towered nearly 7 feet above the ground, her powerful frame built for warfare and survival. Bronze skin stretched over muscles that rippled with each calculated movement as she dismantled the remaining attackers with terrifying efficiency. Her strike connected with bone and cartilage, producing sounds that made Marcus wince despite his relief. When a second bandit attempted to flee, she caught his collar effortlessly and sent him sprawling face first into the rocky earth. Within minutes, all 3 men stumbled away bleeding and cursing, abandoning their weapons and wounded pride to escape further punishment. Marcus stared upward at his savior, his heart hammering against his ribcage like a trapped bird. She stood silhouetted against the blazing sky, her long black hair adorned with small bones and feathers that caught the desert breeze. Her buckskin dress revealed arms capable of snapping his neck without effort, yet her movements possessed an elegant grace that left him breathless. He asked if he could touch her. When she smiled and extended her hand to help him stand, Marcus felt electricity shoot through his entire body at the contact. Her calloused palms spoke of years spent wielding weapons and surviving harsh frontier conditions, but her touch remained surprisingly gentle. Standing beside this warrior goddess, Marcus felt diminutive and powerless, yet strangely protected. Chapter 2: Blood and Secrets. Marcus found his voice after several attempts, the words emerging as barely more than a whisper. "Why did you help me?" The question seemed inadequate given the magnitude of what had just occurred, but curiosity burned through his gratitude like wildfire. Senna studied his face with dark eyes that held depths he couldn't fathom. When she spoke, her English carried the precise cadence of someone who had learned the language through necessity rather than choice. Her voice possessed a quality deeper than most men's, yet unmistakably feminine in ways that made his pulse quicken despite their dangerous circumstances. "Perhaps I grow weary of watching small things break," she replied, circling him with the fluid grace of a predator examining wounded prey. Her massive frame cast shifting shadows across the canyon floor as she moved, each step deliberate and purposeful. The words carried implications that made Marcus's skin burn with unfamiliar sensations. He had spent his adult life being overlooked, dismissed as unremarkable by everyone who encountered him. Yet this warrior goddess spoke as though his survival mattered, as though protecting him had been a conscious choice rather than a mere coincidence. Senna's revelation emerged gradually, each detail more disturbing than the last. She served as a scout for her people, tasked with gathering intelligence about territorial expansion and military movements. Her exceptional size and fighting skills made her uniquely qualified for missions that required both stealth and deadly force when discovery became inevitable. The truth about her recent activities struck Marcus like physical blows. She had been systematically targeting isolated military outposts, using her ability to move unseen through territory that soldiers considered secure. Her methods involved careful observation, followed by swift, silent elimination of key personnel who posed threats to Apache lands and people. Her conflicted expressions revealed the psychological toll of this deadly work. Each mission required her to become something that went against her natural instincts toward protection and nurturing. The violence she inflicted served a greater purpose of defending her people, but the cost to her spirit became increasingly unbearable. Marcus learned that multiple hunting parties now sought her capture or elimination. Federal cavalry units had received orders to bring in the mysterious Apache assassin who had been disrupting territorial operations. Simultaneously, certain members of her own tribe questioned whether her methods brought honor or shame to their people. The canyon that had seemed like a sanctuary now felt increasingly exposed as Senna explained the convergent dangers. Her brother Iukli led a war party seeking her return to face tribal judgment about her unauthorized actions. Military forces approached from the opposite direction, following tracks and evidence that would inevitably lead to their current location. Standing in the growing heat of the desert afternoon, Marcus realized that his simple question about her motivations had opened doorways to complications that threatened both their lives. Chapter 3: Hunters and Hunted. The sound of approaching hoofbeats echoed through the canyon like distant thunder, growing steadily louder with each passing moment. Senna's entire demeanor shifted from relaxed alertness to coiled tension, her massive frame preparing for whatever violence might follow. Marcus watched her transformation with fascination and growing dread, recognizing the deadly focus of a warrior assessing approaching threats. Federal cavalry emerged from the northern canyon entrance, their blue uniforms stark against the red desert stone. Captain Morrison led 8 mounted soldiers in precise formation. From the opposite direction, Apache warriors materialized like ghosts given substance. Iukli rode at their head, his resemblance to Senna unmistakable despite the fury that twisted his weathered features. His war party moved with the fluid coordination of men who had fought together through countless battles, their painted faces speaking of serious intent rather than mere intimidation. Marcus found himself trapped between two forces that viewed each other as mortal enemies. The canyon that had offered sanctuary now became a killing ground where bullets would soon fly, without regard for innocent bystanders. Every rational thought screamed at him to find cover, to distance himself from conflicts that had nothing to do with his simple existence as a ranch hand. Instead, Marcus stepped closer to Senna, positioning himself between her towering frame and the approaching soldiers. His action drew surprised looks from both military personnel and Apache warriors, none of whom expected such foolishness from an obviously outmatched civilian. Captain Morrison called out across the canyon, his voice carrying the authority of federal law. "Step away from the Apache woman, civilian. She's wanted for multiple murders of military personnel." The command resonated off stone walls, leaving no doubt about the consequences of noncompliance. Iukli responded in rapid Apache, his words clearly demanding Senna's immediate surrender to tribal justice. Though Marcus couldn't understand the language, the tone conveyed disappointment, anger, and something that might have been concern for his sister's welfare. Senna's response to both parties came in English, ensuring everyone present understood her position. I choose neither your justice nor your protection. I choose my own path. Her declaration hung in the desert air like a challenge to both legal systems. The revelation of Marcus's true profession emerged when Captain Morrison recognized him from territorial surveying records. His mapping work had inadvertently documented sacred Apache burial grounds, providing information that military planners used for strategic positioning. This knowledge transformed him from an innocent bystander to an active participant in the conflict threatening to consume them all. Standing between two armed forces while the desert wind stirred dust around their feet, Marcus realized that neutrality had become impossible. Chapter 4: Trial by Combat. Captain Morrison's patience evaporated like desert moisture under the blazing sun. Last warning, civilian. Step away from the hostile or face federal charges. His soldiers raised their rifles with mechanical precision, creating a wall of steel barrels pointed directly at Marcus and Senna. Iuckley dismounted with fluid grace, his war paint stark against bronze skin as he addressed his sister in rapid Apache. His words carried the weight of tribal authority, demanding explanations that could determine whether she faced exile or execution under ancient laws. Marcus felt the crushing weight of two legal systems bearing down upon them, each demanding justice according to their own understanding of right and wrong. Federal law viewed Senna as a terrorist who had murdered soldiers in cold blood. Apache tradition saw her as a warrior who might have overstepped boundaries while defending tribal interests. Instead of retreating toward either group, Marcus stepped forward into the space between opposing forces. His voice carried across the canyon with surprising strength despite his modest stature. I invoke the right of trial by combat. The declaration struck both parties like physical blows. Federal soldiers exchanged confused glances, their training providing no protocols for such ancient challenges. Apache warriors shifted uneasily, recognizing words that carried weight under tribal law despite coming from white lips. Iuckley's expression shifted from anger to calculation as he processed Marcus's unexpected gambit. You know our customs, surveyor? His English emerged carefully pronounced, each word chosen for maximum impact. I know that Apache law recognizes personal combat to determine truth when accusations cannot be proven, Marcus replied, praying that his limited knowledge of tribal traditions would prove accurate. I challenged the validity of charges against Senna. Captain Morrison's frustrated voice cut through the tension. This is federal territory. We don't recognize savage customs. His dismissive tone drew angry mutterings from the Apache warriors, their hands moving instinctively toward weapons. Senna's massive frame moved between Marcus and her brother with protective intent. He speaks truth under our law, she announced, her voice carrying across stone walls with absolute authority. Combat determines innocence when evidence remains unclear. Iuckley studied Marcus with predatory intensity, measuring the small man who dared invoke sacred traditions. You would fight me for her honor? The question held implications that went far beyond simple physical confrontation. I would die for her if necessary, Marcus replied, the words emerging with conviction that surprised everyone present, including himself. The canyon fell silent except for the wind whistling through the stone formations. Two cultures collided in the space between ancient honor and modern authority, while Marcus's desperate gamble hung in the desert air, like a prayer seeking divine intervention. Chapter 5: The Truth Revealed. Iuckley's acceptance of Marcus's challenge came with conditions that chilled the blood of everyone present. Combat will be fought with traditional weapons, he announced, drawing a curved knife that gleamed like captured sunlight. First blood determines the victor and settles all claims. Before Marcus could respond, the distinctive sound of additional cavalry units approaching from multiple directions echoed through the canyon. Captain Morrison's reinforcements had arrived in overwhelming numbers, transforming their standoff into a potential massacre. Dust clouds marked the positions of at least 30 mounted soldiers surrounding their location with military precision. The truth that emerged next struck Marcus like a physical blow to his chest. Senna revealed that her final assassination target had been Colonel Reynolds, the territorial commander who supervised all railroad surveying operations. Her mission involved eliminating the man responsible for ordering systematic documentation of sacred Apache burial grounds. Marcus's world tilted as he realized the connections between his innocent mapping work and the desecration that had triggered current hostilities. His detailed surveys had provided military planners with information they used to establish supply depots directly on top of ancestral graves. The railroad expansion he served had become a knife thrust into the heart of Apache spiritual traditions. Colonel Reynolds himself appeared among the approaching cavalry, his weathered face bearing the satisfaction of a hunter who had finally cornered dangerous prey. His presence transformed the situation from local conflict into territorial policy enforcement, with implications that extended far beyond individual justice. Senna's strategy emerged through carefully chosen words that reached both Apache warriors and federal soldiers. She proposed a solution that could prevent the bloodbath threatening to consume the canyon and spread across the entire territory. Her plan required personal sacrifice that would satisfy both legal systems while protecting innocent lives. The revelation of a hidden Apache settlement nearby added urgency to negotiations. Women, children, and elders sheltered in caves less than 2 miles from their current position, completely vulnerable to military retaliation if violence erupted. Federal policy demanded collective punishment for individual actions, meaning that Senna's resistance could doom her entire extended family. Marcus understood that his challenge had created an opportunity for a resolution that neither side had anticipated. Trial by combat could provide a face-saving compromise for all parties, allowing Apache law to determine Senna's fate while satisfying federal demands for justice. The outcome would establish precedent for future conflicts between advancing civilization and traditional tribal rights. Standing in the desert heat with weapons pointed at them from multiple directions, Marcus realized that the next few minutes would reshape relationships between the two cultures forever. Chapter 6. New Horizons. Marcus faced Iuckley in the center of the canyon while armed forces from both cultures watched their deadly dance with weapons drawn. The Apache warrior's blade moved like liquid silver, testing Marcus's reflexes and finding them woefully inadequate. Within seconds, steel traced a thin line across Marcus's forearm, drawing blood that satisfied the ancient requirements of trial by combat. The victory belonged to Iuckley according to tribal law, but his next words surprised everyone present. "This small man fights for honor, not conquest," he announced to his warriors. His blood proves courage that demands respect. The declaration carried weight that transformed Marcus from an enemy to someone worthy of consideration under Apache customs. Colonel Reynolds stepped forward with federal authority backing his words. "Enough of this savage theater. The woman comes with us for the military tribunal." His dismissive tone toward tribal traditions threatened to ignite violence that would consume the canyon in gunfire and bloodshed. Senna's response came with devastating simplicity that cut through legal complications like her brother's blade. "I surrender to federal justice on one condition. The surveyor's maps of sacred grounds must be destroyed and no further railroad expansion through burial sites." The negotiation that followed revealed the political realities underlying their conflict. Railroad interests demanded territorial expansion regardless of cultural obstacles, while Apache survival required protection of ancestral lands. Marcus found himself uniquely positioned to broker a compromise between opposing forces. His detailed knowledge of surveying routes allowed him to propose alternative paths that avoided sacred sites while still providing railroad access to valuable territories. The solution required federal acknowledgement of certain Apache land rights in exchange for peaceful passage through other areas. Colonel Reynolds accepted the compromise with reluctant pragmatism, recognizing that continued warfare would prove more expensive than slight route modifications. Iuckley agreed to escort Senna to federal custody while ensuring she received fair treatment under territorial law rather than summary execution. The resolution transformed individual conflict into precedent for future negotiations between advancing civilization and traditional cultures. Marcus's willingness to challenge both legal systems had created opportunities for understanding that neither side had previously considered possible. 3 months later, territorial records showed that surveyor Marcus Daniels and a woman named Anna had established residence in a small California settlement where past identities mattered less than present contributions. Their remote cabin overlooked valleys where different people could coexist without destroying each other's sacred traditions. Every evening, when Senna held him close, Marcus marveled at the answer to his original question. Touching her had indeed changed everything, but not through physical contact alone. The courage to ask difficult questions and accept dangerous answers had transformed them both into something neither could have become separately. The giant Apache woman and the modest surveyor had discovered that love recognizes no boundaries when built on mutual respect and shared sacrifice. Their union represented hope that two worlds could find harmony through understanding rather than conquest. Marcus had learned that sometimes the smallest actions create the largest changes, while Senna discovered that strength could protect rather than destroy when guided by wisdom instead of anger. The frontier was filled with stories of courage that defied impossible odds and love that conquered all boundaries. If this tale of forbidden romance and unlikely heroes captured your heart, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments which character you connected with most. Your support helps us bring these extraordinary frontier stories to life.